This is an official Football League video, one in a series that features Race for the Championship. 60 minutes of non-stop action, captured in the only official video of the pursuit of the Football League trophy. The official and exclusive Football League video of your club's season in Division 1 relives all the games, home and away, all the goals for and against, a collectible must for every supporter. Revel in the First Division's most breathtaking goals in goals galore, and the greatest goalkeepers in action in saves galore. A brilliant 1-2 from the Football League. Welcome to the official Football League video of Crystal Palace's season 1990-1991. Last season was Palace's first back in Division 1 and was marked by an FA Cup final appearance. Could they improve on that in this campaign? You'll see all the goals from all the games as the Eagles soar again. Last season's heady success in cup competitions at Wembley in the FA Cup and semi-finalist in the Zenith competition disguised a disappointing league position of 15th. But the money generated from those cup runs was put back into the team as Steve Coppell made 3 big summer signings to strengthen his squad. Eric Young came from Wimbledon for £850,000, a commanding central defender who'd won an FA Cup winners' medal back in 1988. John Humphrey cost £450,000 from Charlton Athletic, a fullback with over 350 league appearances. And Glyn Hodges, a Welsh international midfield player, joined the Eagles for £410,000 from Watford.
The easy thing about winning the Cup or doing well in the Cup is that you only need to win 5 or 6 games. Over the course of the 38 games in the season, it was apparent that we just weren't good enough. We had certain deficiencies in the strength of our squad and deficiencies in quality in certain positions. And it's on the league that you do judge yourselves. That's the area where you can say whether you're good, bad or indifferent. And we finished about 5th, 6th from bottom, wherever it was. And it was obvious we had to do something. Eric came in and he was established First Division. I think we couldn't really take the gamble anymore of buying potential. In our rise from the Second Division, we'd always bought potential players we thought were going to be good, and we hadn't really bought any established players. Once we were in the First Division, we realised very, very quickly that we needed proven quality. And in each of the 3 players, we had, to a greater or lesser extent, proven quality.
Of the 4 players who left, the most notable was John Pemberton, and ever present in last year's side. Pemberton was sold to Sheffield United for £300,000 to make way for John Humphrey. So the first team squad looked like this. Nigel Martin settling in for his first full season between the posts, hoping for a call-up to the full England side. A much strengthened defence with new boys Young and Humphrey joining Andy Thorne and the now established left-back Richard Shaw. Jeff Thomas, the club captain, and Andy Gray only missed 4 games between them last season, and their forceful play in central midfield would be of critical importance. Up front, it would be Bright and Wright, scorers of 30 goals last season and recognised as one of the most effective striking partnerships in the league. And so to the first game of the new season. It was away at Luton Town.
Crystal Palace let in 66 goals last season, but today their new signings combined well for an opening goal, a Hodges free kick, and Eric Young was on the end to flick the ball home. But then, just when the Londoners thought they might go into the break with an advantage, Luton hit back. Ian Dowie's near-post header equalising right on the stroke of half-time. That was the end of the scoring. Both teams face a difficult season, so a point each to start with was probably a satisfactory result.
There was an eventful London derby at Selhurst Park. Chelsea's David Lee handling after only 5 minutes. Andy Gray powered the ball past Dave Besant, who'd saved a Derby County penalty on the opening day of the season. But Gray is a volatile character, and 5 minutes later, he reacted angrily to a dangerous tackle from Dennis Wise. Wise in only his second game for Chelsea since they paid Wimbledon a club record £1.6 million transfer fee. Well, now he faces suspension, as does Gray. Both players were sent off by referee Brian Stevens. This was a flashpoint, but it wasn't typical of what developed into an excellent match. Played from this point on as tenor-side, of course, but with emotions very much more under control. Wise departed first. Gray shortly followed. The quality of the football was emphasised by Crystal Palace's second goal after 67 minutes, taken with great expertise by Ian Wright. In a way, it was an escape for the Norwegian defender Erlend Johnsen. If he'd pulled right down here, it would have been an automatic red card under the revised laws of the game. So 2-0 to Palace, but still a storming finish, inspired by Tony Dorigo, Chelsea's Australian-born England international left-back. Crystal Palace 2, Chelsea 1, and that was the way it finished.
Steve Coppell's team, maintaining the momentum gained from their cup run last season, have got off to an excellent start. They dictated the early play, Ian Wright heading against the bar in the 15th minute. When Gary Thompson crashed one against the woodwork as well, 20 minutes later, it was beginning to look as if it might not be Palace's day. But justice was done 6 minutes before the interval, a cross from their new signing John Humphrey, and there was Thompson to head home from 8 yards.
Crystal Palace may not have turned out to be the team of the 80s, but they've made more than a useful start to the new decade. In fact, it's their best ever start to a First Division campaign. They always had the measure of Norwich at Carrow Road, taking the lead after just 6 minutes. Solako's cross, an uncharacteristic error from Brian Gunn, and Phil Barber needed no second invitation. Now, it's just possible the Canaries may have sung the best players for sale song once too often. There was certainly nobody capable of clearing the ball, although Palace had a fair slice of luck here. The rebound falling nicely for Ian Wright. And that's Palace 2 ahead and only 12 minutes gone. But Steve Coppell's men easily worth their lead, and it came as no surprise when John Solako finished the home team off with a strike early in the second half. The offside trap is sprung. Good control and finish from Solako. Could be the start of a new era for the cup finalists from South London.
Crystal Palace missed the chance to go top for the first time since 1979 when Terry Venables was in charge. They made a great start though to a highly entertaining game. Ian Wright producing the skills he hopes will grace an international stage and setting up Richard Shaw for his first league goal. Palace commanded much of the game, but just when that top spot seemed in reach, Stuart Pearce rocked them back with 2 goals in 3 minutes. First, the England fullback seized on Nigel Clough's flick and drove home the equaliser. Nigel Martin in goal looking anything but £1 million worth there. And then a Pearce special, a 35-yard free kick penetrating the wall, and Martin could only help it on its way. 2-1 to Forest, and the Selhurst Park crowd muted. But Jeff Thomas restored their collective smile when his looping header cleared everyone in the Forest goalmouth and somehow bounced into the net. A point each is a fair result.
For the first 43 minutes, the sellout crowd at White Hart Lane got a game littered with fouls. Palace disputed this one vehemently, but a free kick it was. England assistant manager Laurie McMenemy needs little reminding of a certain gentleman's prowess from dead ball situations. Paul Gascoigne, number 8. Goal number 5 for him, and Spurs in control. Referee, perhaps in the way of the defensive wall. Nigel Martin in goal claimed he wasn't ready. But Palace fought back well in the second half. A great ball from Jeff Thomas there. And England hopeful Ian Wright, well, really should have done a lot better. But Wright soon made amends. Some fine work from him here. And skipper Jeff Thomas was on the spot for a fully deserved equaliser. Spurs still unbeaten and having their best start for years, could have wrapped up the 3 points. But there's a rare miss from Lineker. Stewart faltered in front of goal. And there's the Lineker miss. Palace got a well-earned draw.
12 points from 6 games, unbeaten so far, along with Tottenham, Arsenal and Liverpool, who have yet to drop a point. Alex Dyer was transferred the following Tuesday to Charlton. Dyer had been only on the fringes of the first team since arriving at Selhurst Park in November 1988. The Rumbelows League Cup game the same night provided Palace with their highest ever cup victory. Clinical second half finishing with hat-tricks for Wright and Bright made the second leg a mere formality 2 weeks later. The league programme took the Eagles next to the baseball ground.
Crystal Palace's Wright and Bright partnership claimed the points at Derby. Ian Wright, one of the fastest players in the league, in the clear. And despite Mark Wright and Peter Shilton, Palace won up. Two minutes into injury time now. Glyn Hodges with the cross. Mark Bright, the goal to confirm that Palace are a side to be reckoned with in the First Division. After 6 weeks, they're up there in 4th place and still unbeaten. Derby dropped to the bottom.
Still in the gap. Was not far off being a fine ball into the near post. Well used though by Martin for Palace to McGoldrick. Wright, Thomas coming behind him. Ian Wright for Crystal Palace, it's wide. But you saw there really what Crystal Palace are all about. The sheer speed of the break, starting with the goalkeeper's distribution, taken up by McGoldrick. A great touch here by Thomas. And Wright wriggled into the position to score, but this time he didn't. Wright, Barber. Recovering by White. Sure, there's a gap through the middle for Thomas. Wonderful save by Lukic. Thomas goes again. Great goalkeeping. And they do regard in the First Division John Lukic as one of the best goalkeepers in a one-on-one situation. And that certainly came into that category. Chapman. Oh, and it's Chris White who's miskicked it, and Fairclough. The two centre-backs. The right place for Leeds, but the wrong men there. come Palace, and it's Ian Wright who could be the right man for Thomas. It's a goal. Leeds should have been leading, and they're trailing. Well, that is Crystal Palace in a nutshell. John Lukic is hurt, but the brave attempt, he was left totally exposed. But this is how it happened for Palace. We know where the Leeds defenders were. They were trying to score at the other end, and they failed, but Thomas didn't. Batty. But Leeds certainly not out of this. Chapman, Sterling on the overlap. Got past Barber. And good defending by McGoldrick. Eddie McGoldrick might well have been warned about Gary Speed's ability in the air. Strachan's corner, 1-1. Gary Speed it is. What a flying header. And the marking that time wasn't there. Well, McGoldrick had defended against him a few moments ago, but Speed free in the corner and really burying it. Strachan. Batty. Well, Crystal Palace could hardly complain if they went behind the way this game has developed. Stelland! The Leeds players all threw up their arms in expectation. He really did connect cleanly, and Crystal Palace are being caught out here by the versatility that Leeds are supplying at set pieces. It's been an invigorating match, particularly in the second half. Sterling, is it going to have a real sting in the tail? Palace scored in the last minute last week away at Derby to secure a 2-0 success. Are they going to do it again? Well, that took your breath away. Ian Wright, so direct and so dangerous and full of optimism, really, to even try that.
Palace travelled to Goodison hoping to equal their best ever start in the First Division back in 1979. Last year they gave up 4 goals to Everton, but with Nigel Martin in great form in the Palace goal, a repeat of that never looked likely. Everton might have taken all 3 points if Graham Sharp's second-half header had gone in. But in the end, Palace remain unbeaten after a goalless draw. Crystal Palace have set a new club record. 10 First Division matches and no defeats after a thrilling London derby at Selhurst Park. Visitors Wimbledon, no pushovers. Paul McGee putting one over Nigel Martin. A clever turn and chip, catching the highly rated keeper off his line. The Eagles certainly made of much sterner stuff this season. Within 7 minutes, they were back on level terms. Lovely work from Ian Wright. Jeff Thomas heading the equaliser. In the second half, the floodgates really opened. Palace fullback John Humphrey put his side ahead, sliding the ball into the unguarded net. Sagers off his line. Humphrey, a canny acquisition from struggling Charlton. And now Palace were in the groove. They looked like scoring whenever they attacked, best move of the game. Saw them sweep the ball down across the field. Humphrey for Solarco. The knockdown by Bright for Andy Gray to fire home an emphatic first-time drive. But while the Eagles were flying up front, their defence was showing unusual signs of disrepair. And John Fashanu made them pay. Better known for his more physical endeavours near goal, the Wimbledon striker caught Martin off his line. A delicate chip that from 20 yards. The action, though, non-stop in this South London derby, and Palace came roaring back. A quick cross, Mark Bright volleyed in off the post. 4-2, sure, victory was now secure. But still, Wimbledon refused to accept that their cause was lost. Just 3 minutes left, and McGee completed an excellent afternoon's work, waltzing round Martin to peg back another goal. In the end, though, too little, too late. Palace had been tested, and once again came away with the points. Well, Crystal Palace were never really in this rerun of this year's FA Cup final. Just 12 minutes gone, and Manchester United take the lead. Lee Sharp, number 11, perseveres here. He's outnumbered and apparently hemmed in, but that's great skill from him. Now Wallace, and finally Neil Webb, past Nigel Martin in the Palace goal. And 7 minutes later, United effectively wrapped up the match, and skipper Neil Webb very much involved once again. There's Webb, number 7, with a brilliant ball for Danny Wallace, and Wallace skips in for the second. United then follow up that superb win in midweek against Liverpool, and they end Palace's unbeaten run.
Despite that first defeat of the season, Palace stayed in the top 4. What reasons did Steve Coppell give for that great start?
I think the new players made a difference. Big Eric, ever since Mickey Droy, we hadn't really had a big centre-half. And I just think with Eric coming in, with his size and his stature and his pace, he's quick. I think that gave us stability. And John Humphrey came in at right back and gave us that increased assurance down the right side. And Glenn Humphreys, who was struggling a little bit with Glenn Hodges, rather, who was struggling a little bit with injury at the beginning of the season, just gave us a little bit of guile and increased our effectiveness on set pieces. And I think all three combined, together with the assurance of all the other players after the FA Cup final, and linked with being undefeated in the first couple of games, gave everybody a confidence which just went on and on and on. And it was unfortunate in the end that poor performance destroyed that run at Old Trafford, of all places.
Back in the Rumbelows League Cup, Leyton Orient's keeper Paul Heald performed heroics time and time again to deny Palace and send the tie to a replay. Then Mark Bright's looping header, which gave Palace the win, came in the 89th minute. The next visitors to Selhurst Park were Arsenal, 2 places above Palace in the league.
So a free kick virtually on the centre spot. Young, the tallest of the pack. Oh, and it very nearly did the trick. Furrowed brows there. And it didn't really matter what it came off from the Palace point of view. Any sort of touch could have led to a goal. And it was Tony Adams who wasn't exactly guiding the ball back to his own goalkeeper, was it? Bright, with Adams right at his back. Bright did well. So too did Jeff Tonks. And the Crystal Palace supporters responding to that. This show of strength from the captain. And David Seaman, who's not been unduly troubled in this match, had to come off his line and make a safe catch here with Messrs Barber and Wright in there. Bright. Remember, 11 years ago today, Palace beat Arsenal, the only time in the league. 1-0. Is it going to be 1-0 here? The flag is up. Salako is stopped in his tracks. And I must say, at first evidence, he did look offside. But let's take another look. Well, it was John Salako on the far side, and the flag went up straight away, and Alan Seville disallowed the goal. O'Leary. Nelson was pushing, was he? The whistle again had gone, and it's understandable that the players are slow to react to it. They can hardly hear it. Nelson was in that incident there. The whistle had gone by now. Bright. Oh, and Wright, will he reach it? He does! And David Seaman got his body to the ball, and that was what stood between Crystal Palace and Ian Wright in particular, and a goal. Barber comes in. Now Gray. Storming stuff from Steve Coppell's team. Well, Ian Wright, who is so desperate to get back as a scorer here, to boost his England claims. And David Seaman felt that he couldn't get there in the first place, but he was there when it mattered, when Wright did get to the ball first. Davis over Humphrey, collected by Campbell, and then by Limpar. Arsenal away from home, coming strong in the second half again. But Limpar, with this succession of goals behind him, couldn't manage another one. And Palace mightily grateful for that. Nigel Martyn stayed upright until he had to go down.
Crystal Palace hadn't scored against Queen's Park Rangers for 23 years. They had to wait an extra 23 minutes before Ian Wright's shot went in off Paul Parker. Wright's first league goal since September. Palace nearly went 2 up after the interval, and again it was Ian Wright in where it matters. Palace with Andy Gray back to form, encamping in the Rangers half. The cross in, Wright onto the bar, and Paul Parker here just deflecting it over. After the interval, Rangers drew level. Roy Wegerle sets the move up, but some terrible defensive work coming in here from Crystal Palace. The England under-21 keeper, Nigel Martyn, caught in no man's land here. Simon Barker does a good job retrieving the ball, and Wegerle this time in with his head. But Palace struck back. Eddie McGoldrick's corner flicked on by Thorne, and Ian Wright picks up his second. Palace back to their best. Only one defeat this season. Southampton manager Chris Nicholl has £1.5 million to spend, but he can't find any players to buy. But when Crystal Palace visited the Dell, it looked for a while as though the generosity of his opponents might take his mind off the transfer market. Richard Shaw putting through his own goal in the first minute. The South Coast has proved a friendly climate for goal scorers in recent weeks, and they're currently none better than Palace's Ian Wright. He equalises for the London side on the half hour, his 9th goal of the season. 3 minutes later, Wright, an England squad player, surely destined for the first team, pops up again. This time running on to a through ball from Jeff Thomas to put Palace ahead. Within minutes, however, the action moved to the other end of the pitch. A cross from the left, and there's Paul Rideout to apply the finishing touch. The Saints back in the game. Palace have developed this season into one of the First Division's most impressive teams in front of goal. Mark Bright gets their winner, And with Bright and Wright firing on all cylinders, Palace will be a handful for anyone.
Two good away performances keep the Eagles in fourth place, and with Liverpool now starting to drop points, the race for the championship is very much alive. Palace stay on the south coast for their Rumbelows League Cup fourth round game just 3 days after beating Southampton. This time the tide turns and the Saints win with a goal either side of half-time. Into December now, and Coventry City come to Selhurst Park.
Coventry player-manager Terry Butcher selected himself for this one against Palace, but Butcher can do nothing about this Eddie McGoldrick free kick and a fine Mark Bright header, his 8th of the season. Butcher's job, though, not made any easier by David Speedy. His backchat earns him a red card in the last 10 minutes. Butcher substituted himself, but Coventry still suspect at the back. Flick from Ian Wright, Coventry all at sea. Andy Gray accepts the gift. Gray just back from injury. Just before the final whistle, Coventry manage a reply. It's the first goal of the season from Cyril Regis with 2 minutes to go. Too late for an equaliser. Palace finished with all 3 points, just one defeat all season. Crystal Palace were the latest visitors to Stamford Bridge, scene of many a broken reputation. The Eagles had Andy Thorne back at the heart of their defence. His presence up front forced the ball through a crowd of players. Palace ahead against the run of play. But Chelsea, after beating Tottenham here last week, were soon level. Corner from Dennis Wise, a firm header from Graham Stewart. The Palace back four left very static. Into the second half, Chelsea running the show. 20 minutes to go. Gordon Jury, and watch for a deflection after some great control from Jury. Fullback Richard Shaw is the unfortunate player. Keeper Nigel Martin has no chance. 2-1, Chelsea still unbeaten at home. Trio of Palace players returned from international duty with England v and Algiers after glowing reports. Goalkeeper Nigel Martin and captain Jeff Thomas staked claims for future full honours. Star of the show was striker Ian Wright. Against Luton, though, it was his partner up front, Mark Bright, who opened the scoring with a well-placed header. In the second half, Wright might have had a hat-trick to add to his 10 goals already this season. Time and time again, though, he was thwarted by the Luton keeper, Alec Chamberlain. Unfortunately, Luton's forwards were equally unsuccessful. All Chamberlain's heroics were for nothing, and Bright's first half goal was enough for all 3 points.
That win over Luton takes Palace back into the top 3, and they're still hard on the heels of Arsenal and Liverpool. The Zenith Data Systems Cup got underway with a 2-1 win over Bristol Rovers, the visitors scoring first and putting up a spirited performance. In mid-December, Palace made their first signing of the season, bringing in Stan Collymore from non-league Stafford for £100,000. He would have to wait for his inclusion in the first-team squad. To start the Christmas and New Year programme, the Eagles travelled to Main Road, Manchester.
Last year, Palace were beaten 3-0 at Main Road, but City soon rule out any chance of a repeat performance. What a mix-up here. Own goal by Neil Poynton, a chronic misunderstanding with his goalkeeper, Tony Coton. And City heading for their first defeat under the management of Peter Reid. Superb effort coming up here from Ian Wright, though, watched by the England manager, Graham Taylor. The Palace striker underlines his credentials for a place in the national side.
Away to Crystal Palace, Sunderland unveiled a striker with a famous name, Rush. David Rush, no relation to Ian, but with the same eye for goal. Sunderland into the lead. David Rush on as a substitute for Marco Gabbiadini. But Crystal Palace came strong in the closing stages. Andy Gray's long throw, John Salako with a deserved equaliser, and setting up a rousing final 10 minutes. With Salako again involved as Palace push forward for the winner. A run on the left-hand side, an inch-perfect cross, and Mark Bright directing it beyond Tony Norman. 3 more points for Palace, their title challenge looking less fanciful as the weeks go by.
No, just wide from Wright. Looked a real chance there.
It was a good try. I thought it was in from this angle up here. Big kick there from Nigel Martin. The direct route, and there's the partnership again. Mark Wright challenging. Ian Wright looking for anything he can get in the area. Gets a good shot in. Good try.
Here's Wright on the far side now. He's got round his man. He's gone round Gillespie. It's in there. Mark Bright. Palace go into the lead. Bruce Grobbelaar shakes his head. Congratulations were for the number 9. Let's see here now. As Wright got the better of Gillespie, and yes, Mark Bright just tapped it in.
Yeah, great work from Ian Wright. He turned Gillespie there, cut inside, knocks a great ball in. Mark Bright does what all good strikers do, get in front of the defender and just flicked it between Bruce's legs.
McMahon, Staunton, McMahon again. Burrows on the far side, Rush just up ahead of him. Burrows in for Staunton, in for Barnes. There's all sorts of variations possible here. It's Mulby, and a terrific save by Martin.
I'm sure that Nigel Martin thought probably John Barnes was going to hit it, but that was right in. That was a very good save.
Gillespie up in there, Rush in there. Oh, that was an amazing save by Martin.
Great chance for Ian Rush there. I think that, but he did what you've got to do as a striker, which is keep the ball down, hit the target, and you've just got to give credit to the goalkeeper. I never mind missing if I hit the target, because he had no time to think, really. A win for Palace will certainly make the league more interesting. I think it'll tighten it up at the top.
Yes, they get within 3 points of Liverpool. Arsenal will then be just 1 point behind Liverpool. Here's Wright. What's he going to give? No penalty. That was a great break by Ian Wright. Hussein was on his heels.
Ian's got in front there, and yes, it definitely, I don't think there's probably intent there, but it would have been an understandable penalty, I think.
You get the impression of a ball hitting the hand.
He's definitely scooped it back. Well, I got away with that one, Glenn.
Only 48 hours after their victory over Liverpool, Crystal Palace came down to earth with a resounding bump at Villa Park. Villa went ahead 2 minutes into the second half. John Salaka bringing down Chris Price, and up steps David Platt to convert his 6th penalty of the season. Then 3 minutes from time, Palace's offside trap is well and truly sprung. Lee Butler finds Platt, and the England man all alone makes no mistake for his 15th goal of the season. He's joint top scorer in the First Division.
After that victory over Liverpool, Palace looked drained against Aston Villa, but 3 wins out of 4 and still third in the table. And for Steve Coppell, a personal triumph. He was named Barclays Manager of the Month for December and signed a new contract with the club just before the Liverpool game.
It got to the stage where the speculation concerning myself and linking me with other jobs, I felt was beginning to be unsettling for everybody at the club. And I didn't really want that to be an influence on the team's results. So myself and Ron got together and he made me a very good offer, which I accepted, and we decided to formalise it and let people know. And I am one of those people who when I do sign a contract, I do stick to it. I'll stay my time at Crystal Palace, and at the end of that, then we'll see what happens. But certainly for the 3 and a bit years I signed for, I'm a Crystal Palace man and committed to them.
The FA Cup third round saw Nottingham Forest at their most resilient, battling for a scoreless draw at Selhurst Park. In the replay, a brilliant 45-yard shot from John Solako clinched the draw in the final minute of extra time, forcing yet another replay, also at the City Ground. And in it, Forest came alive in the second half with 2 goals in 3 minutes from Gary Parker, and the Eagles were out this time at the first hurdle. Before those replays came these 2 league games.
Palace are third, Sheffield United are bottom, but Palace making heavy weather of this encounter. In the 75th minute, Steve Coppell's side get the breakthrough. Eddie McGoldrick does the hard work. Mark Bright collects his 12th goal of the season. So Crystal Palace, beaten only twice all season, keep their title hopes alive. With 5 wins in the last 6 league games, Crystal Palace are a match for anyone these days. But against an unpredictable Norwich side at Selhurst Park, they were soon in trouble. Jeremy Goss here gets his 3rd and definitely his best of the season. Early in the second half, order briefly restored when Mark Bright continued his recent scoring spree. 4 in the last 5 league matches with a headed equaliser from Andy Gray's miss-hit shot. But Norwich are an awkward side. Their 5-man midfield took hold of the game as Palace began to wilt. And after 73 minutes, Scottish international Robert Fleck's persistence paid off when he dispossesses Martin to chip home Norwich's 2nd. The highly rated Palace keeper won't be happy with that one. And minutes later, Fleck secures the points for Norwich, this time driving home first time with a crisp left-foot shot. His 4th in 4 games, a result then that Crystal Palace will want to forget as they slip to their first home defeat of the season. And a real turnaround at the City Ground. Crystal Palace have gone there 6 times in 3 weeks in League and Cup matches and have had precious little to show for their troubles. They had to wait until the 86th minute to get their own back. Eric Young rising to flick home that Andy Gray free kick. With Arsenal losing, Palace's hard-fought victory puts them just 3 points behind the leaders. Crystal Palace were the only side in the top 3 with a league fixture this weekend, giving them the chance to close the gap on Liverpool and Arsenal. But QPR's Les Ferdinand should have put them behind after a quarter of an hour. Ferdinand fighting for his place as Roy Wegerle looks set to return next week. Palace were quoted last week at 33-1 to win the title, despite being just 6 points off the top, but they continue to confound their critics. Midway through the first half, John Solako's cross is met by Phil Barber, but Jan Stejskel's reflexes are good enough to keep the scores level. It's not often that the referee brings a cheer from both sets of fans, but Brian Hill of Kettering shows that it can be done. Even the players enjoyed his unconventional header, and with his pride just about intact, he was soon ready to continue. Ian Wright, who last week at Wembley won his first full England cap against Cameroon, threatened to snatch all 3 points for Palace. He controls Barber's cross immaculately, and his snapshot draws another fine save from Stejskel. After a shaky start to the season, the Czech international keeper who cost QPR £600,000 from Sparta Prague is really finding his form. Wonderful control and a superb instinct save. Nigel Martin in the Palace goal is no slouch either. He denies Lee Sinton towards the end, but with just 1 point at home, Palace have done themselves no favours as they chase the leaders.
So Palace failed to get the 3 points that would have taken them level with Arsenal. In the next round of the Zenith Data Systems Cup, a determined Brighton side took the Eagles to extra time before the Wright-Bright partnership turned the game. Ian Wright's goal, incidentally, was his 100th for the club. Then, a week later, 2 more goals from Wright saw off Luton Town, and the Eagles were 1 step away from returning to Wembley. In mid-January, Glyn Hodges, signed in the summer, was loaned out to Sheffield United after making 9 first-team appearances. Later, the loan was extended to the end of the season. Palace's league aspirations could be strengthened now with a visit to Highbury.
by Merson. In comes Linnigan on the far side. Well, David O'Leary gets himself and the ball out of the net, and Arsenal are in front. So the set piece paid off, and Crystal Palace will be annoyed here. First of all, Linnigan won the header, and look how far the ball went through the pack, and from there, David O'Leary, even though it went in off the goalkeeper, he could hardly miss. It wouldn't have gone in directly, I don't think. It's certainly O'Leary's goal. Michael Thomas. Oh, and Jan Smith, Merson behind him. Is it 2 for Arsenal? It is. Well, they scored 4 minutes into the half, and they've got another 4 minutes before the half-time break. And really, Eric Young must hold up his hand. He was beaten by the bounce. And Merson kept his composure, kept it low. Just brushed off Young. And Merson had a look, saw where he wanted to put it, and made sure the ball got there. Humphrey. It's an awkward bounce to right. O'Leary made it his. Campbell. For Smith. There's a shot on! There's a great goal on for Alan Smith. Arsenal reimposed their quality again. Palace may be playing with plenty of purpose, but for the taking of chances, you have to hand it to Arsenal. Slipped through by Campbell. Smith made an angle for the shot and found it via the underside of the bar, number 3 for Arsenal. It was superbly placed. Well, some records will tell you that that's Alan Smith's 17th of the season, but he only owns up to 16. On the opening day of the season, Arsenal put one down to him at Wimbledon, which was clearly an own goal. Winterburn. Oh, and it's going to be 4. It's Kevin Campbell. Nigel Martin. Culpable there. And Palace, who conceded 4 goals on this ground in the league last season, are 4 behind again. Campbell's goal.
The Crystal Palace defence was said to be missing Andy Thorne when conceding 4 goals to Arsenal last week. Despite his return for this game, Palace still look shaky at the back as Trevor Peake gives Coventry the lead in the 39th minute. Brian Kilcline's magnificent free kick put Coventry 2 up just after half-time. Kilcline only in the side because player-manager Terry Butcher was injured. And the big central defender strikes again in the 67th minute, heading in Woods' corner. It's the first time Coventry have got 3 goals this year. 4 minutes from time, Palace do get a consolation goal. John Salako on the wing finds Thorne. And then it's Andy Gray who hustles his way to the byline before allowing Ian Wright to nod in his 15th goal of the season. It's not enough to prevent Palace's 3rd loss in 5 games, and the title now looks to be slipping out of reach.
Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace were looking to consolidate their 3rd place in the First Division, but in the first half they could find no way past Tim Flowers in the Southampton goal. Ian Wright, the disappointed striker there. The Palace crowd had to wait over an hour for the first goal of the afternoon. It finally came after 67 minutes, skipper Jeff Thomas's header looping over Flowers. And just 60 seconds later, it was Thomas again who made it 2-0 for Steve Coppell's side. Quite a goal it was too. This time Flowers given no chance at all by Thomas's free kick. Southampton, though, did manage a late consolation goal. The Palace defence clearing the ball only as far as Glenn Cockrell on the edge of the area, and the Southampton player finding the net 6 minutes from time. But 3 points for Palace, and Southampton now dangerously near the relegation zone.
Although the Championship looks beyond them, a place in Europe beckons if third-place Palace can continue to pick up points. But for 75 minutes, it appeared no one wanted to win. Then Derby self-destructed. England defender Mark Wright makes an awful mess of his challenge on namesake Ian. It's a penalty. Andy Gray, facing Peter Shilton, makes no mistake, driving his spot kick past the former England #1. Just 6 minutes later, and Palace went further ahead with a classically executed goal. John Salako with the cross. Mark Bright will nod it back and into the path of Ian Wright, and the New England striker squeezes it into the county net. Derby fought back bravely, and with just 5 minutes left, a fine solo effort from Gary Micklewhite reduced the deficit. But despite a late rally, Derby remained firmly entrenched at the bottom of Division 1.
Those two wins bringing closer the club's chances of European football next season. The hopes of the league title itself went in late January and early February with only 4 points from 5 games.
The fact that we dipped a little bit, I think, was just indicative of the season we had. We'd worked very hard to get where we were. We got through a stage where we had some very, very difficult matches. And I just think we were a little bit weary and a little bit stretched our resources, and we're a team who does need to train, and what with the weather and the cup competition, the cup games against Forest, we lost our rhythm, and I think it took us a little while to get back into that rhythm. And you know, we make no grand statements that we are the best team in the league. We're just going to make sure that we finish as high and as strong as possible.
The Zenith Data Systems Cup was providing plenty of cheer. In the first leg of the Southern Area final, a score draw at Norwich set up the Wright-Bright double act at Selhurst Park. A 3-1 aggregate victory, and Palace at Wembley again. Swindon Town, so nearly in the First Division themselves, sold Paul Bodin to Palace in mid-March. The 26-year-old left-sided player cost £550,000. Back in the league, it was third against fourth. Crystal Palace away to Leeds United.
Shut inside the area, trailed by Young, turns it back beautifully. McAllister's in here. Now the turn is from Speed, who whips in the shot. Martin down to it, and that's the most promising move we've seen yet. And Palace come back. Down the left they go with Salako. 2 men in the middle, Salako goes on. We're having a look at a replay, but at the other end, Palace have a great chance of scoring and do. So goal for Crystal Palace. So away went Salako. His speed got him into the position. He turns it back, and Ian Wright with the header inside Lukic's right hand upright. Bright got a little flick on that one. And he's not offside, and Gary Speed has a great chance here to equal things for Leeds United. It's against Martin, and Gary Speed puts Leeds level. 6 minutes from half-time, and the Crystal Palace offside trap is undone. Something at last to celebrate for the Leeds fans. And McAllister taking a lot of the credit, but Lukic with that long ball up there, and you see how they were stretched, and Gary Speed had found himself in space, and he went on and rolled it past Martin. And the man who scored at Palace has scored again here today. But he's so cool, is this young Welsh international, and he never had any fear there. He was going to beat Nigel Martin. It's exactly what he did, and it's now Leeds 1, Crystal Palace 1. It's Palace again looking now with two men coming on this raid, and Fairclough must be swift to get back as the cross comes over towards Jeff Thomas. Lukic keeps it out, but it's a winner from Solarco. And the Palace fans are sent into ecstasy by what surely must be a winning goal from John Solarco. There was the break down the right that caused the problem. Thomas with the header, bravely kept out by Lukic, but Solarco on hand to pounce. And it really has been a disastrous week for Leeds United. Lukic did all he could, but Solarco accepted the gift.
Sunderland, second from bottom, desperately need all 3 points against Palace at Roker to keep alive their First Division survival hopes. 35 minutes gone, and delightful play between Atkinson and Brady. And that's beyond Nigel Martyn, and big things predicted for 19-year-old Kieran Brady. Palace, though, back on level terms 3 minutes after half-time. Long throw from Andy Gray. Alan Pardew drills in the equaliser. But Sunderland's youngsters are playing really well, and many people hope they'll be around in the First Division again next season. 9 minutes to go now, and Brady sets up David Rush to make it 2-1. Rush enjoys playing against Palace. He scored against them on his debut back in December. What a great week it's been for Manchester City's Niall Quinn. First a goal for the Republic of Ireland at Wembley against England in midweek, and then a hat-trick for City at Crystal Palace. The first, a simple tap-in at the far post. 32 minutes played. Just a minute later, the big Irishman makes it 2-0. David White, clear. His cross finds Quinn, unmarked. And that's a sweet volley beyond Nigel Martyn in the Palace goal. 8 minutes after half-time, and it's his hat-trick. Free kick from Adrian Heath, and Quinn in decisively. The player-manager, Peter Reid, absolutely delighted. Steve Coppell's side get a late consolation through John Solarco. It's a neat turn and shot as well. 3-1, and too little, too late for Palace.
Only the second defeat at home, and Leeds closed the gap. The Eagles' minds may have been on Wembley. For the following weekend came the Zenith Data Systems Cup final against Everton.
Keogh. Here's Milligan. Now that to Hinchcliffe. Eric Young, free header. Pardew finds right. It's too strong then for Milligan. It's a useful ball in too. And just nipped away at the last end by Watson. With Mike Wright lurking in there.
That was magnificent defending. Wright does tremendously well here. Dispossesses Milligan, goes on, strong run, early curling cross, and you'd have bet money there that was going to run onto his striking partner, Mark Wright. That is, Watson has got his side out of prison there brilliantly.
Well, the word from Goodison is that he's beaten their best defender this season, Dave Watson. And he certainly underlined his qualities then. Eric Young was in there. It's Andy Thorne. Well, safely in the arms of Neville Southall in the end. But certainly it was a chance.
Well, this is a classic Palace move. Ball in, big men put pressure on, and they try to be first to the knockdown.
Solarco, little chance of reaching that one, really.
Yeah, what Everton have done well, they haven't penetrated too well. Howard Kendall will be disappointed with that. But what they did do when Palace were really trying to raise a storm earlier, they took the heat out of the game, they passed the ball around, they denied Palace the ball, and consequently Palace haven't been allowed to build up too many of their stormtrooper attacks.
Well, I don't know where Steve Coppell went, but he's now returned to his seat on the bench. There he is. The little boys' room up top. Fair enough.
I wouldn't have thought the game was that exciting.
If you have to go, Ron, you have to go. And that was a misunderstanding there.
Keown let it go through, and Southall was almost beaten.
Well, that would have been an own goal, wouldn't it? I mean, actually, Keown was doing what Andy Gray wanted his own teammates to do. There's one of their stock-in-trade balls right into the box. Little nudge, little deflection.
Actually off the bar. So a let-off then for Everton. A call. No flag. Newell. Cotty's got darting through the middle, and Varshika. Here's Sheedy now. And Young able to clear. It needed a better cross then, really, from Sheedy. Hinchcliffe now. Everton bouncing straight back at Palace. It's Milligan. Sheedy to cross it in. Oh, Young slipping. And somehow they've got it back to Nigel Martin. My word, they were living dangerously then. And
well, you've got the distinct impression there Everton were prepared not to score. I don't think they'll have many more better chances than that in the course of the game.
It's Andy Gray down injured. It was the first pass here.
I actually thought he looks to be well off there. Sitting where we are, I thought he was well offside there, Newell, when he went on. But he's spun, he's got the back of the defence. A good ball in. Cotty's just missed it, possibly may have slid in. And this is where I think it's Gray, this is where he gets in, the little chip forward. And I think Gray tends to sort of, well, he gets in a tangle there with Martin. And it's actually Martin that's hit him.
Right. Good play by him. McGoldrick now. Got three in there, and Salako didn't really have the height. The corner anyway. But if that had been Mark Bright in there and not Salako, that could easily have been a goal. Salako himself will now take the corner. They've got Young in there. And Thorne. Thorne's on the near post. And it's there! Thomas has got it. And lost a goal. And it's the captain. Scenes of delight now among the Palace supporters. And Thomas, who dived in from Salako's corner. A brave header. And Palace have taken the lead here. Almost at the midway point of the second half. How strong will the Everton reply be now? McDonald pumping it up towards Cotty. He certainly won't win that one in the air. Salako now. His corner provided the first goal. Right straight at McDonald. Here's Thomas, the goal scorer. Now Washika. It's end to end now. Newell. Washika! 1-1. What a reply from Everton. And it's the Pole who scored yet again. That's 4 goals he's got now. And he's only been here a matter of weeks. What an entrance into English football.
Super goal. But here you see them attacking the space again in the left back area. Great first touch by Newell. A little bit fortunate there. It falls into Vashika's run. Rebound. But a marvellous finish.
Well, he tucked it away delightfully. Here's McCall. Right, doing well. Salako now. Shooting chance opens up for him. And it was certainly deflected. And he struck that superbly then, Salako.
Yeah, the other thing I'm thinking about with Howard's substitution, great effort from this. Just a little deflection takes it over the top.
Here's Nevin. Watson's come up too. And that was an important header away then. Coming up for him. Vashika. Great goalkeeping by Martin. Well, no doubt at all that he came to the rescue then at Crystal Palace.
Very much so. Well, here we see Nevin. Salako's been sleeping from a quick free kick. Ball goes in half cleared. I had a suspicion once again that Dave Watson may have been offside here.
As we go into injury time, there certainly will be time added on for those problems with Keown and Gray. Crystal Palace 1, Everton 1. The Silhouette Cup final still has another chapter to unfold, I would think now, unless either team can snatch it at the death. They might just do that here with Cottee for Everton. Once more, defiant goalkeeping by Nigel Martin, who got his angles absolutely right. And Cottee, who came on to score twice in the Northern final against Leeds, thought he might have done it again there.
Yes, he'll be disappointed. Once again, I thought that was actually a starting position from Cottee. I thought he started offside there, actually.
Well, it wasn't given. Sheedy now will take the free kick. Big Dave Watson is in there. It was Bright who half got it away. The call. Oh, it was sloppy then. Right with Thomas. Now, is Thomas going to pitch it here? McGoldrick. In for Wright. Oh, great save by Southall. And away by Watson. And both teams could have won it there. Cottee at one end, and the other number 10, Ian Wright, at the other.
And there's the ball in. Ian Wright here. You thought it's his scene. He's trying to knock it back across the goal. Southall does well to stand, not commit himself, and keeps a good strong left arm.
Rashika, Sheedy, Nevin. This is where he's so tricky. And into the side netting by Dave Watson.
I honestly don't think Big Dave, who's had a magnificent game, I don't think he'll know how he's missed that. That was superb link-up play over this side of the field. And then Pat Nevins crossed a great ball in, stood it over the goalkeeper, and it looked as if all he'd got to do is really get around and keep it in the net.
Right, let it run on. Ian Wright now. That's the second for Palace. And it's Ian Wright on the spot once again. Goal number 20 for the England striker. And what a sweetly struck goal that was there. A calm-looking Steve Coppell on the bench. He will be absolutely elated now. I think Bright lost that in the sunshine there.
May well have done. I was looking at the situation just before Martin kicked the ball, and they were very, very bare at the back, were Everton. Hinchcliffe will be a bit disappointed he didn't stay stronger there on the first ball down.
Well, Ron, you have to nominate the man of the match today. Who are the leading contenders for you?
I would say, particularly when Keown was on the field, all the central defenders must be in the pot. Ideally, I would like to have given it to a front player, because I love front players to win the awards, because they're the ones that are actually excited. But I think overall it would probably have to be.
There's McGoldrick, just to interrupt you there, for Bright, and Salako! That's three, and surely now Palace are going to win their first Wembley trophy. Salako with Palace's third. To send the Palace fans into raptures. And he took it so well.
Yeah, that's a beautiful delivery. Beautiful ball in, little eyebrows. Salako in the position where he wasn't in the first half. Remember we were saying filling in and making sure nothing went past the back post. But I mean, it would also have to be said, I wonder, you know, they've gambled, pushed everybody up. Maybe if Big Dave Watson was still in the middle, that wouldn't have occurred.
And Steve Coppell will be hoping the 33,000 Palace supporters here today will be out in force for the next league game at Selhurst Park. What goes right? And it's there! It's 4! 2 for Ian Wright. And Everton now all over the place. The sheer speed off the mark then of Ian Wright caught them cold. And
suddenly Everton are looking a thoroughly demoralised side. Tucked away by Ian Wright. And poor old Neville Southall could only look on in despair.
The interesting thing is the last 2 goals, they're beaten in the air now without their aerial kingpin. He's hit it early, that's what's kidded Southall.
Man of the match, Jeff Thomas leading up the Palace players, a broad grin from the captain as he receives the Zenith Cup from Joe Solani. And there it is. What a contrast in emotions. The rejection of the Everton players and the sheer joy of those from Crystal Palace.
A Wembley triumph for the Eagles, but the following week they were back in league action at home to Aston Villa.
A lovely day at Selhurst Park, but a pretty drab match. David Platt's confrontation with Nigel Martin in the home goal, the nearest to a score in the first half. And not much change in the second. Palace go close though. Eddie McGoldrick brings out a brilliant save from Lee Butler. No goals though in the end, the point share. Just one early goal settles this one at Selhurst Park. Force-fed, challenged, can't hold it. Eric Young hooks it in for the only goal of the game. Spurs back down to earth after that semi-final success.
With the announcement that there would be only one UEFA Cup place for English clubs next season, Palace needed to beat Everton at Selhurst Park to have any chance of challenging the reprieved Liverpool for that European spot.
Everton have the corner. And that was flicked on there by Eddie Yards. One of those little touches that often deceives goalkeepers, but it went straight at Martin. Here's McGoldrick. Cotti. Ratcliffe back in his first position at left back, where he started at Everton in the late 70s. But it was the right back today, the youngster Yards, who got to the corner from Sheedy quite solidly too, but Martin was in the right place. Thomas back in the centre of the action again. Humphrey. Same for Gary Thompson. Ian Wright's there behind him. Salako's there as well. There are not too many frills about Crystal Palace, and they don't offer any pretense either, but they get the ball in quickly and effectively, and they get players into the opposing penalty area as well. And Salako nearly getting full value for his enterprising positional play. Corn. Oh, it hit Newell. It's dropped for Newell, and he was actually tripped. Mike Newell, who is such an honest character, was still trying to slip the ball through for Cotti. And Everton now have an opportunity here that might be tailored for Kevin Sheedy. He will have a good look at the situation, you can be sure about that. Ratcliffe is loitering to the left. Paul has his back to the goal. And Sheedy is asking for the referee to ensure that the wall is back 10 yards. Mike Reid seems to think that it is, although it doesn't look like it to me. Sheedy takes, and Martin saves. Well, however far back they were, he bypassed them, but not the goalkeeper. Collymore. Thomas! That was well hit. And we've been waiting a while for a real strike in anger at the Everton goal from Crystal Palace. And Collymore set it up with that header guided into the path of Jeff Thomas. Well, it's a familiar problem. That broken nose of Martin Keown. He hasn't flinched in this game, but Gary Thompson was very awkward to deal with then. Kevin finding himself on the left. Oh, and Newell is offside. Solanke. Keown wondering where the goalkeeper was, wondering where Thompson was. Most importantly, though, he located the ball. This is right. Oh, and Southall very nearly caught. In right. Well, was this deliberate? I guess it was. Southall has started to come out. Palace pushing out. Oh, now that was naughty. We've waited a while for it, but it's finally come, and Martin Keown just couldn't contain himself. Now this could mean a red card. It does, and Keown can have no complaints. It's been simmering. It's a legacy of what happened at Wembley, when Martin Keown had his nose broken, and he wasn't going to depart here without leaving a similar sort of blow, which was very unprofessional. Young has eyes on the ball, and up goes Keown, and the elbow was there to brandish at Young, and that's unforgivable. Young has gone off. Palace are down to 10 men, just like Everton. Beagrie, and a second time. This is Osborne. And that will be a corner, and maybe Crystal Palace's last chance to win it. Up goes Andy Thorne. Solanke to take the corner. Southall comes for it, decisively. And Beagrie can only turn it behind again. We're in the 5th minute of time added on. And Thomas is there, off the line. Behind Southall. But the whistle had gone. Southall was starting to go for it originally. Collymore perhaps was fouling him. Eddie Yards it was who got it to safety. But I don't think the goal would have counted.
2 points dropped then, and realistically, third place the best that can now be achieved. Excellent, though, for 150-1 outsiders at the season's start. Palace could still have a say in the Championship, though, because next they visited Anfield.
Ablett. Rush let it run for Beardsley. On again. Ian Rush! Oh, what a counter! What a goal by Ian Rush! And what a moment for him. His 300th goal in club football is one of the best that he's scored for a long, long time. Nigel Martin never had an earthly. He didn't get within a mile of it. Ray Houghton. Beardsley. Nicol. Barnes. 2-0. John Barnes frees himself of the shackles of his marker to head a second goal for Liverpool. Captain's cross from Steve Nicol, and John Barnes defeated both the offside trap and the night-long attentions of Alan Pardew to head his 18th goal of the season. Crystal Palace have marked up so tightly, but they let Barnes go there. The flag stayed down, and Barnes made no mistake. John Barnes, Steve Nicol. Ray Houghton popping up from a hole in the ground, and McGoldrick has run the ball into his own net, and Liverpool lead by 3-0. Ray Houghton with that pop-up run made it possible, but Eddie McGoldrick, who's had a great night really for Crystal Palace, could do nothing but turn the ball into his own goal. Just 3 minutes left to play, and there goes Houghton down the centre of the field, and that's what embarrassed Crystal Palace, and McGoldrick stretching got the final touch past his own goalkeeper, and he just couldn't get back there to salvage it.
This could be Wimbledon's last league game at Plough Lane. They could be playing at Palace's Selhurst Park next season, and their prospective landlords give them a tough time. Ian Wright early in the second half. And watch for a brilliant second goal from Wright just 6 minutes later. Long clearance from Nigel Martin, and just keep your eye on Wright here. That is a fantastic lob over Hans Segers. Superb goal. Ian Wright then on a hat-trick, and he gets it after 72 minutes. John Solarco in space for John Humphrey, and Wright hooks it back from the acutest of angles. Wimbledon 0, Palace and Ian Wright 3. There's an early gift for Palace at Selhurst Park, a fumble by United keeper Gary Walsh, and a chance for Ian Wright, his 25th of the season after only 3 minutes. United perhaps with other things on their mind. They go to Rotterdam on Wednesday for the Cup Winners' Cup final against Barcelona, and they rested 6 regulars. No surprise when Palace go further ahead through John Solarco just before the hour. It's been an excellent season for Palace. They finished 3rd in the league, their best position ever, and they get number 3 with just under 20 minutes to go. Solarco is on target once again, and it's a superb effort from all of 20 yards.
Crystal Palace finishing the season in style. That 3rd place in the league, by far the highest position ever achieved by the club. Early cup exits in the FA Cup and the Rumbelows competitions, but winners of the Zenith Data Systems Trophy. A season for manager Steve Coppell to look back on with pride.
At the start of this year, I always think the bookmakers are very rarely wrong. We were second favourites to be relegated. And finishing the year, I think the bookmakers will be the first to admit that they made a major mistake. And I think the fact that we've stayed at the top of the division more or less all season long, even through our sticky patch, we stayed up there, and then we've come through it, and we're going on. I think the players now realise that they are capable of going on to better and better things if they keep their feet on the ground and if they have the will and desire to do well. Once we lose those characteristics, then we are an average team, and we've also proven that on a number of occasions this year. So I think it's set the goalposts. We know where we stand. We know what we have to do to be successful. We know what we need to fail on to be average. And I think we've learned an awful lot about ourselves during the course of the season.
The leading scorer was Ian Wright, 25 in all. Great goals from him to be recalled in this most memorable season for Crystal Palace.